She said it so softly I almost thought I imagined it. You make me remember what it's like to want. The words hung between us, quiet and dangerous, like a secret neither of us had meant to say aloud. It started weeks before that night, in a place that smelled faintly of old wood and lemon polish, her husband's office. I'd only been working there for a few months, a summer job that had stretched into something else. She wasn't supposed to be there often. But sometimes, around late afternoon, she'd come in with a cup of coffee, or a file her husband had forgotten, or just silence. She was older, of course, everyone noticed that first. But what caught me wasn't her age. It was the way she carried herself, steady, self-contained, like someone who'd learned to keep her thoughts neatly folded inside. Her hair was always pinned up, but never perfectly. A few strands escaped near her neck, and for some reason, those few strands always undid me more than anything else. That afternoon, the air conditioner had stopped working. The office was too warm. She leaned against the edge of the desk, reading something, her blouse slightly unbuttoned at the throat. I could hear the soft rustle of paper, the click of her pen, the faint hum of her breathing. You should go home, she said without looking up. I don't mind staying. She gave a small smile, the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes. You remind me of when I used to say things like that. I didn't know what to answer. So I just sat there, pretending to finish my notes, but mostly, watching her. Every movement of her hand was deliberate, graceful, but when she thought I wasn't looking, her fingers would still for a second, pressing into the paper as if holding something back. When she finally looked at me, it wasn't like before. There was something different, slower. Her eyes traced my face for a heartbeat too long, and suddenly the air felt heavier. You're quiet today, she said. So are you. Her lips curved, faintly amused. Maybe that's why it feels louder in here. She said it lightly, but it wasn't light. The silence between us stretched, not empty, but filled with everything we weren't saying. I could feel the pulse at the base of my throat. I could feel the way she was trying not to notice. She moved to pour herself more coffee, and as she reached past me, her arm brushed mine, barely, but enough to send something sharp through me. She froze, just for a second. Then kept moving, as if nothing had happened. Sorry, she murmured. It's fine. But neither of us meant the words the way they sounded. When she handed me a folder, our fingers touched again, accidental, but not innocent. Her skin was cool, softer than I'd imagined. She didn't pull away right away, and I didn't either. The papers between us trembled slightly, caught in the strange gravity of that moment. Then, footsteps. A man's voice, distant but getting closer. Her husband. She blinked, stepped back quickly, and the air broke open again. The spell dissolved. She smoothed her blouse, composed her face, her voice steady when she spoke. Put that file on his desk, please. I did. But I could still feel her touch, faint as a memory. And as the door opened and her husband's shadow fell across the floor, she looked at me once more, the briefest glance, enough to say everything she couldn't. Then she smiled, polite and practiced, and said, Thank you for staying late, Daniel. That night I couldn't sleep. Her words replayed in my mind, low, careful, almost trembling. You make me remember what it's like to want. After that night, something between us changed. Not all at once, more like a slow turn, a shift you only notice when it's already too late to turn back. She started coming by the office more often. Not every day, but often enough that I began to wait for it, the faint sound of her heels down the hallway, the way her perfume announced her before her voice did. It wasn't heavy, that scent. It was faint, familiar. Like rain on something warm. She'd ask about work, small, practical questions. But somehow, the conversations drifted. Not into anything dangerous, just closer than they should have been. One afternoon, she sat on the edge of the desk again, same as before. You're still here, she said, glancing at the empty hallway. Don't you ever get tired of this place? Sometimes, I said. But I think I like the quiet. Quiet, she repeated, tasting the word. That's rare. There was a small silence. She seemed to get lost in thought, eyes focused somewhere past me. Do you miss it? I asked before I could stop myself. Miss what? Quiet. Her smile faltered a little. She looked down at her hands, long fingers, a wedding band she kept twisting when she was nervous. There was a time I couldn't stand it, she said. Now I think it's the only thing that doesn't ask for anything from me. I didn't know what to say to that. But I wanted to ask more, about her, about what she meant, about why her voice went soft when she talked about silence. Instead, I said, You don't look like someone who likes being alone. Her eyes lifted to mine. For a heartbeat, I saw something unguarded, something like truth. That's because I learned how to make it look like I don't mind. She looked away then, stood up, adjusted her sleeve. The distance between us filled again with air that felt too thick, too aware. I'd never been with someone older, not like this. There was something about her restraint that made every small thing louder. The way she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, the soft sigh when she exhaled, the quiet strength in how she carried herself, it all pulled at me in ways I didn't know how to name. When she reached past me to grab a folder, her hand rested briefly on my shoulder. Not long enough to mean anything, but far too long to mean nothing. My body went still. She must have felt it, because her breath caught. She didn't move right away. Just stood there, close enough that I could feel the warmth from her skin, the faint tremor in her breath. Then she whispered, almost to herself, You shouldn't look at me like that. I'm not, I said. But my voice gave me away. She smiled faintly, as if she didn't believe me, then stepped back. You really are too young, she said, but her tone was softer than the words. Regret mixed with something else, something neither of us wanted to admit. The air between us pulsed, quiet, charged, fragile. And as she turned to leave, her fingers brushed mine again, barely, deliberately. It wasn't an accident this time. She didn't look back when she walked away. But she didn't hurry either. And I knew, whatever this was, it had already started. By the third week, pretending not to notice her had become its own kind of torture. She stopped by the office again near closing. The sky outside was the color of watered-down wine, the city soft behind the window. Her husband had left early for a meeting, and the silence he left behind felt like permission. You're still here, she said, the same words as before, but this time her voice carried something different. Something careful. I was finishing up the reports. She leaned on the edge of the desk, close enough that I could smell the faint citrus in her perfume. You work too hard, she murmured. He doesn't even notice, does he? I shrugged. Doesn't matter. It does, she said quietly. You should be seen. The way she said it, seen, made my throat tighten. Her eyes were steady on me, studying, as if she were memorizing details she shouldn't be memorizing at all. I tried to look away. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because someone might hear. She smiled, small and almost sad. No one ever listens in this place. Then her phone buzzed. The sound broke the air like a crack. She glanced at it, a message, a name flashing briefly across the screen, and turned it face down without opening it. Her jaw tightened. For a moment, I saw the weight she carried, not just marriage, but years of pretending everything was fine. The kind of pretending that wears grooves into a person. She reached for the coffee cup beside me, and our fingers brushed again. I didn't move this time. Neither did she. Her hand lingered, still, then slipped away, slow, hesitant. You make it very hard to behave, she said softly. I laughed, but it came out wrong. Too quiet. You're the one standing too close. Am I? She didn't move back. I could hear my pulse in my ears, feel the heat between us, quiet, dangerous. The office light flickered once, catching the shine in her eyes. She looked up at me then, really looked. And for a second, it felt like gravity itself leaned in. Then a knock. The door creaked open. It was Evan, one of the interns. His voice broke through like cold air. Sorry, I forgot my... He froze. Saw her. saw me. Then smiled too quickly, mumbled something about coming back later, and vanished down the hall. The door clicked shut again. She exhaled slow. Then laughed under her breath, shaking her head. That was close. I swallowed. Too close. Her gaze drifted back to mine. You're trembling. I'm not, I said. But I was. She stepped closer, just enough that I could feel her breath when she spoke. Daniel, she said quietly, warning and wanting folded into one word. I waited, for her to move away, for me to step back. Neither of us did. Her hand lifted as if to touch my face, stopped halfway. She caught herself, fingers curling back into a fist. I can't, she whispered. I know. We stood there, the distance between us thinner than air, both pretending it was still there. Outside, the office lights flickered off one by one as the building settled into night. She turned finally, voice almost breaking. Go home, Daniel. But she didn't leave. Not right away. She just stood there, close enough that her shadow touched mine. And for the first time, I realized she wasn't the only one trying not to fall. Rain came that evening, heavy, steady, the kind that blurs everything outside into watercolor. Everyone else had left early. She hadn't. Neither had I. The building was nearly silent, except for the rain tapping against the tall windows and the low hum of the desk lamp between us. She was standing near the shelves, fingertips brushing the spines of old ledgers, her blouse clinging slightly at the shoulders where the rain had caught her on the walk-in. A few strands of her hair had come loose, curling against her neck. I tried to keep working. I really did. But I kept catching myself watching her, the slow movements of her hands, the soft sway of her body when she turned. Finally she said, without looking at me, You've been staring for 5 minutes. I wasn't, I said too quickly. Her laugh was quiet, but it wasn't mocking. You're a terrible liar. She turned, leaning against the shelves. The light caught her eyes, and for the first time, she didn't look composed. She looked alive. I keep telling myself to stop coming here, she said, voice low. To stop this? Then why don't you? Because you're here. The words landed between us like a spark. I stood slowly, unsure if I was moving toward her or if the room itself was pulling us together. She watched me, not backing away. Her breath hitched once when I got close enough for the warmth between us to mean something. You shouldn't say things like that, I whispered. She smiled faintly. You always say that right before you move closer. And she was right, I did. The space between us disappeared. My hand rose before I could stop it, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, fingertips grazing her cheek. Her skin was warm, softer than I'd imagined, and when she closed her eyes for a second, I felt something inside me break loose. I don't want to ruin anything, I said, my voice barely a breath. You already have, she whispered. There was no anger in it, only truth. She stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly as she touched my arm, then my chest. You make me forget, she said. And I can't decide if that's mercy or cruelty. Her scent, clean, faintly floral, wrapped around me. I could feel the heat of her breath against my neck, the unsteady rhythm of her heart against mine. The rain outside grew louder. I think about you, I said, the words escaping before I could take them back. All the time. Her eyes opened, wide, wet, unguarded. Don't say that. Why not? Because if you mean it. She paused, searching my face. Then I can't pretend anymore. A long silence. Only the rain filled it. I reached up, touched her wrist, holding it there, feeling her pulse stutter under my thumb. Then don't, I said. For one suspended heartbeat, everything tilted, her lips parted, her body leaned in, the distance vanished. And then, the door handle turned. We both froze. Her husband's voice echoed down the hall, closer than it should have been. Anna? She stepped back sharply, eyes wide, breath breaking. The moment shattered, the air between us left humming, unfinished. Go, she whispered. Now. But her hand caught mine before I could move, one last second of touch, desperate and shaking. Then she let go. And in her eyes, just before she turned away, was everything we'd almost done, and everything we couldn't undo. The next morning, she didn't come in. Her husband did. He greeted me the way he always did, brisk, distracted, polite, but something about his tone felt heavier, deliberate. His eyes lingered on me a moment too long before he said, "Anna mentioned you've been a big help around here." It shouldn't have meant anything. But the way he said her name, careful, testing, made my chest tighten. I nodded, pretending to be busy with the files. "Just doing my job." He smiled faintly, thinly. "Of course." Then he left, and the silence that followed felt like an accusation. That night she texted me for the first time. "Can you stay after work tomorrow? I need to talk to you." No greeting. No explanation. Just that. The next day, I waited long after everyone else had gone. The building lights dimmed to their night settings, a soft amber glow that made everything look smaller, more fragile. When she finally walked in, she didn't speak right away. She stood by the window, her reflection ghosted against the glass, rain streaking down outside again, just like before. "I think he knows," she said quietly. My pulse stumbled. "Knows what?" She turned, eyes dark and tired. "That something's changed. That I've changed." I took a step toward her. "Did you tell him anything?" "No." Her voice cracked on the word. "But I think he heard us. That night." The memory of it hit like a blow, her husband's voice in the hallway, her hands slipping from mine the door. She looked at me, really looked, and I saw it, fear, guilt, and something deeper underneath, something that refused to die. "I should have stopped this," she whispered. "You didn't." Her lips pressed together. "Neither did you." Silence pressed around us again, dense, electric. She moved closer, almost without realizing it, a step, then another, until she was close enough that the edge of her perfume mixed with the faint scent of paper and rain. Her hand lifted halfway, stopped midair, trembling. "He asked me why I keep coming here. I told him I didn't know." Her breath shook. "That was a lie." I reached for her wrist, gently, my fingers brushing her pulse, fast, uneven. "Then what's the truth?" She swallowed. "You." The word hung there, a confession and a sentence all at once. I should have let go. Instead, my thumb traced the inside of her wrist. Her skin was cool, goosebumps rising beneath my touch. "Anna." She looked up, her name catching in my voice, and for a second it felt like the world had shrunk to the space between our mouths. Then, footsteps again. Quick this time. Closer. She pulled back sharply, almost stumbling. The color drained from her face. Through the glass, a figure passed down the hallway, her husband, phone to his ear, eyes flicking toward the door before moving on. We both stood frozen, breathless. When the footsteps faded, she turned back to me, shaking. "This has to stop." "You don't mean that." She met my eyes, fierce and breaking at once. "I do. Because if it doesn't..." She trailed off, her voice barely there. "I'll do something I can't take back." Then she brushed past me, her shoulder grazing mine, her scent clinging to the air she left behind. At the door, she hesitated. Didn't look back. "Tomorrow," she said. "We end it tomorrow." But the tremor in her voice told me she didn't believe it, and neither did I doubt the next day. The office felt wrong, too quiet, too clean, as if it had already erased us. She hadn't come in all morning. I kept glancing at the doorway anyway, pretending I wasn't waiting. When she finally appeared near dusk, she didn't knock. She just stood in the doorway, rain-damp hair loose around her face, her expression stripped of everything except exhaustion. "Lock the door," she said softly. I did. She didn't move at first. The only sound was the rain outside and the low hum of the fluorescent light above us. Then she walked toward me, slow, measured steps that seemed to cost her something. "I can't keep pretending I don't think about you," she said. Her voice was low, shaking slightly, like she'd rehearsed a line too many times and still wasn't ready to say it. I took a step closer. Then don't. She let out a short, unsteady laugh. You make it sound simple. It is. We just. She cut me off with a small, desperate shake of her head. Don't you see? If I cross that line, there's no going back. Not to my life. Not to who I was. Her words hit hard, but her body didn't move away. She was close enough now that I could see the faint shimmer of rain still clinging to her collarbone, the tremor in her hands as she tried to hold her distance. You're shaking, I said. So are you, she whispered. We stood there, inches apart, the kind of nearness that demands an answer. My chest rose and fell too fast. Her breath brushed against my skin when she spoke again. Tell me this isn't real, she said. Tell me I imagined it. I couldn't. Instead, I lifted my hand, slowly, like a question, and brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. Her eyes fluttered shut, just for a heartbeat. She leaned into the touch, just enough for my fingers to feel the warmth of her skin. I don't want to ruin you, she said. You won't. She smiled faintly, eyes still closed. You don't know what I'm capable of. I wanted to tell her I didn't care. That ruin had never felt so much like grace. But the words wouldn't come, only silence, and the sound of our breathing growing uneven. When her eyes opened again, something in them had changed, a quiet surrender, the kind that only comes when resisting has cost too much. She took one last step forward. Our foreheads nearly touched. Her voice was a whisper against my mouth. This is the moment, she said, where we either stop lying, or we stop pretending we can. Her breath caught, trembling between us. For a second, the world stilled. Then she exhaled, slow, final, and pressed her palm to my chest, right over my heart. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just truth. Her voice broke when she spoke again. Now you know what it's like to want. And in that instant, I understood her completely. The fear, the hunger, the ache of being seen too clearly. Neither of us moved. We didn't need to. The choice was already made, not in words, but in the way we stayed there, breathing the same air, knowing what we just crossed couldn't be undone. She didn't come to work the next day. For a while, I thought that was the end, that she'd finally done what we both kept saying we should do. End it. But that evening, as I was locking up, I saw her standing outside under the awning, rain again falling soft and steady around her. No umbrella. Just standing there, hair damp, eyes tired, waiting. When she saw me, she smiled, a small, uncertain thing. You weren't supposed to be here this late. I never am, I said. But neither are you. For a long time, neither of us moved. The rain filled the silence between us, the smell of wet pavement and coffee drifting through the cool air. Then she said, I told him I needed time away. Because of me? Because of me, she corrected gently. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the fine lines near her eyes, the faint shimmer of water on her lashes. You think I don't care what people would say? She murmured. I do. But for the first time in years, I care about something more. Her voice cracked a little on the last word. I wanted to ask what came next, what we were supposed to do with everything we'd broken open, but the words didn't matter anymore. She reached out first. Her fingers slid into mine, hesitant, trembling. It was such a small thing, a hand, a touch, but it felt like the quiet beginning of something we'd both been holding our breath for. We stood like that for a while, not hiding, not pretending. Just being there. Her hand fit against mine awkwardly at first, like she wasn't used to being held that way. Then she let herself lean in, her forehead finding my shoulder, her voice low against my shirt. I don't know where this goes, she whispered. But I know what it means. I nodded, my thumb tracing small circles over her knuckles. That we stopped lying? She smiled faintly. That I stopped being afraid. I rested my chin lightly against her hair. You know this won't be easy. It was never supposed to be. The streetlights flickered, catching in the rain like scattered glass. We stayed there, two people standing too close on a quiet street, holding on to something fragile but real. After a while, she tilted her head back and looked up at me, that steady gaze again, softer now. Daniel, she said, my name slow on her tongue. For the first time in a long time, I feel awake. I smiled. Then it was worth it. She reached up and pressed a gentle kiss to my forehead, not a promise, not a claim, just a touch that said I'm here. We didn't talk about tomorrow. We didn't need to. In that small moment, with the rain easing and her hand still in mine, everything felt honest. We walked away together, quiet, not looking back. And though the night was still heavy with what-ifs, I knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, we had finally stopped pretending not to feel it.